This is a negative electrostatic charge. This is a negative electrostatic charge forming the Hudson Bay during the cataclysm. This is your brain frying on the beautiful drug that is Cataclysm 27.2, ground morphology and the negative electrostatic discharge. Before we go too far from the Hudson Bay, note that there is a black dot in the middle of the negative charge. This represents the island found centrally in the negative charge location called the Belcher Islands. Note the fluid flux-like shape and hold on to that important detail because we will return to it. Noting the central island feature, we can say that these islands represent the positive core to the negative charge, and it provides us an electrical explanation for the shape and depth of the island and surrounding bay. This model corrects one of the fundamental errors in crater categorization, which is that they are an impact crater. Quite the opposite. These represent an extraction crater, negative charge, as in the removal of material. The evidence for a negative charge can also be seen in the double layer that formed along the east coast of the Hudson Bay. Double layers are a well-known electrical feature, and they are visible in the land, water, parallel dynamic, a double layer. This is a feature shared by many other locations, such as Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas. We don't always find double layering, but we do find substantial similarities in the central core island, which I'll get to in a moment. There are 4 limbs to the negative charge, and each has a unique and predictable characteristic that can perfectly define the features of northern Canada if you direct the arms into their composite elements. Limb 1. Limb 2. Limb 3. Limb 4. Just north of the Hudson Bay, we find another circular node of negative charge, centered here on Prince Charles Island. Once again, we have a central nodal island with a round negative depression surrounding it. While no 2 points of data make a trend, there is a third crater we can add to our timeline, and that is the 2016 Greenland crater identified as this arced rim right here. When these 3 points are pulled together, we most certainly have a trend line of negative charge zones. This is where it gets really cool. As I often do, when I saw this trend line, I continued to follow it south, and eventually, it turns out you end up dead center of the Memristor paddles of Asheville, North Carolina, discovered by Fred, all the way from the Greenland crater in a perfect line. That's 4 points of data, and a pretty substantial argument that they are part of the same electrical event and were created during the peak cataclysm. In fact, if you keep going north and follow the trend line all the way across the North Pole, you end up at the literal very back of the discharge that repelled Venus, as illustrated here. We can't ignore this trend line. Let me take a moment to establish where this negative charge was coming from. Both the St. James Bay and Florida have the same right thumb orientation. You can only achieve this by mirroring off the core of the Earth in the discharge. These formations can only occur if they were structurally connected through electromagnetic forces to the very smallest portion of the core of our planet, Indeed, I would suggest that these same structures, imprinted on the surface of the Earth, are imprinted on the surface of the Earth's core. When pulled together, what we find is that there was actually a pair of chaos circuits, one in the south managing the charge with memristor paddles, and one in the north managing the flux with a memristor scroll pattern, and doing so through a connection at the very core of our planet. We're not done. In previous videos, I've looked at the formation event that created the butterfly wings of the Badlands and the Black Hills in North Dakota. It occurred to me one day that I should bisect these two from a central node just to their south and see where they point. And as it turns out, they point to the inlet connecting this formation in the third limb of the negative discharge that formed the Hudson Bay. In electric circuits, what I am defining is called a center tap transformer, another discovery credited to Fred. And this little symbol on the diagram here represents the center tap ground. And that means that the Badlands and the Black Hills represent the center tap ground, grounded to the core, per the literal diagram. This is a freaking ground connection. We're almost done. We now have a large-scale structural definition for what the eastern half of North America was during the cataclysm. It was a memristor. It's a lot to acknowledge, but when I tie the final pieces of the puzzle together with the positive charge, you will see that what this represents is a clean and crisp view of what happened on the Earth that day.